Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. You know, there's some things, I think the gentleman called them a secular sermon. And let me check my sound before I go. Where it takes place and you get captured into it. Where you find yourself kind of either nodding your head or there's something in you that swells up. You're like, yes! Shout out to Metro Democratic Socialists of America. Shout out to Metro Democratic Socialists of America. Why am I giving a shout out to Metro Democratic Socialists of America? I don't give shout outs all that often. Why them? What makes them so goddamn special? Democratic Socialists of America catches Homeland Security Secretary, I don't know how to pronounce her first name, but it's Kristen Nielsen, at an upscale Mexican restaurant. And seeing her at an upscale Mexican restaurant, if you saw the person who gave an endorsement and protection of the Trump plan to separate kids from their moms, essentially babies screaming and crying and howling at the top of their lungs as some thick-throated brute, some fascist, rips them away while they're reaching away at their mom, the only parent they've ever known. And the person who defended that is sitting at a Mexican restaurant, of all the ironies of ironies, eating her taco or whatever. Metro Democratic Socialists of America organized and started shaming her loudly in public, screaming, "Shame! Shame! If you can't eat it, or if the kids can't eat in peace, you can't eat in peace. If the kids can't eat in peace, then you can't eat in peace." Screaming it at the top of their lungs while she's sitting there attempting to eat her taco. I love it. I fucking love it. I fucking love it. Man, why don't this take place for just the regular homeless person? The regular average homeless person who's sitting out on the street. Why isn't there a contingent of people screaming at random people in office, politicians? If they can't eat in peace, you can't eat in peace. I'm not knocking it. I love it. I love the fact they went after these guys. I love the fact that the person who was giving this endorsement of this plan, or at the very least was lying about the benefits of the plan, or lying about the plan, or lying about the law in pursuit of trying to defend the plan, gets called out. There needs to be a consequence for the decisions that they make in those offices. And oftentimes there is a gap between the person who's making the decision versus the consequences of those decisions. Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State, putting through policy that kills 500,000 kids and saying, yep, I think that's perfectly okay. You can say that's perfectly okay if you aren't necessarily materially touched by the decisions that you're making. Well, in this case, Kristen Nielsen got touched. Let's take a look at the video. I love this. This is awesome. Again, shout out to Metro Democratic Socialists of America.
Secretary Nielsen, how dare you spend your evening here eating dinner as you're complicit in the separation and deportation of over 10,000 children separated from their parents? How can you enjoy a Mexican dinner as you're deporting and imprisoning tens of thousands of people who come here seeking asylum in the United States? We call on you to end family separation and abolish ICE!
Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE!
Abolish ICE!
Shame! 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 Shame!
Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame! Shame!
Family separation! And family separation! And family separation! And family separation! You don't eat in peace! If kids don't eat in peace, you don't eat in peace! If kids don't eat in peace, you don't eat in peace! If kids Mexican restaurant of all places. Homeland Security Secretary Kirsten Nielsen is in a Mexican restaurant of all places. The goal. Shame on you.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
Shame. Shame.
Shame! 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 Shame!
Fascist pigs.
Shame! Shame!
Shame. 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 Shame.
Shame! 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 Shame!
No more children in a cage.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Oh God, that's beautiful. If kids can't eat in peace, you can't eat in peace. You get touched by your decisions. And they're screaming at it. The fucking gall! Eating in a Mexican restaurant where Mexicans are being deported and babies are being ripped away. The fucking gall. God, I love that. Love that. It does something to me. I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's take a look at this. Demonstrators interrupted Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirsten Nielsen's dinner at an upscale Mexican restaurant in Washington on Tuesday night to express their outrage. That's putting it mildly. The fucking gall. The contempt in her voice. Called them fascists, you fascist pigs. Oh, I love that. We're getting back to Vietnam. No, I wasn't around during Vietnam, but goddamn, that feels amazing. I mean, come on. You were deporting people and ripping them away from their families. And your expectation is that the public itself wouldn't say anything? That the public will be okay with this? You have a guy that's a goddamn racist in the White House saying that Mexicans and rapists are drug dealers. I suppose that he feels he's mowing the lawn by getting these kids into these camps and ferreting these parents off into these internment camps. Yeah, if they can't eat in peace, you don't eat in peace. Fucking A. Fucking A. Find her ass and everybody else a part of that administration everywhere they go and scream. Scream at them. Shame on you. At a White House press briefing Monday, Nielsen defended the Trump administration's newly enforced zero-tolerance policy for people trying to cross into the United States from Mexico without visas. Nielsen's falsely claimed that federal law requires family separation when parents, even those legally seeking asylum, are held for prosecution. And she said family separation is not a new policy. Reports of young children left crying in the border processing centers and tender aid shelters in southern Texas touched off several protests Tuesday across the country. So far this spring, more than 2,300 child migrants have been separated from their parents, fleeing violence in Central America and housed at quote-unquote least temporarily in federal and non-profit-run child care facilities in border states. I hope there's no pedophiles in those states, in those jails. I mean, after all, you've separated them from their families. You would have to purely depend upon the dignity and the integrity of the guard who's taking care of them. Quote-unquote care. I'll leave it. This one isn't to be long. Democratic Socialists of America. Good fucking job. Good job. God, I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. Alright, I want to end this here. Let me make sure. There's something weird with my chat. For whatever reason, it's not showing up. So, I can't see it. So, I apologize if there's... There we are. I don't get context for some reason. I rewound it. Comparing these people to Nazis is hyperbolic and counterproductive. It only fuels the counter argument. Sure, the boy who cried Nazi, I get it. Well, fascist is used for... People call them fascists all sorts of times. I mean, that's essentially herald at pretty much anybody who's behaving in this way. I mean, ultimately, it is hyper nationalism, where Yeah, it's hyper-nationalism. I mean, you can make an argument that it is to some degree fascist. Ultimately, they're taking immigrants and putting them in camps. Yeah, I mean, come on. It's hyper-nationalistic. I was in jail for days, 4 days with no charges filed. There are a lot of people in jail with no charges filed that's been in there for a very long time. In fact, you can make an argument. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the majority of the people that are in jail are there because they either can't pay a fine, can't pay their bail. So, all right, I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. Of course, you can always support through Patreon. And again, Metro Democratic Socialists of America, good job. Oh, by the way, there's news on that. So after that, Homeland Security Secretary drew up plans. This. Homeland Security Secretary drafting order to end family separation at border, unclear on whether Trump will sign it. Is that results? Is that what that is? Is that direct action getting results? They go in, they scream at her, they scream shame at her. There's a huge amount of public will that is pissed off that you've made the United States a laughingstock, trying to create this fortress of America, lied about the law in order to push through your hyper-nationalistic aims, and then she comes out and says, okay, I'm going to change it. I don't know if Trump is going to sign it, because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is the one that needs to sign it. Also, this is also an act of Congress to essentially stop doing this. But direct action, and she comes out with a policy change. Don't misunderstand me. Donald Trump may not sign it at all. There are Republicans who are trying to change this policy, but it's a policy, it's not a law. Donald Trump and the Republican Party is interpreting this way to do this. You don't have to rip families apart like this. So I'm going to end it here. Good job, Metro Democratic Socialists of America. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. Fuck it, hey, if the kids don't eat in peace, you don't eat in peace.